You are listening to the Purpose of Money podcast, a podcast where we talk about ways to build wealth and create more freedom in your life today. I am your host, Aquania Escarnet. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Purpose of Money podcast. Today, I'm super excited. We have special guest Toni Titus, the host of Choose Your Life podcast, which tackles topics surrounding entrepreneurship and personal development. Prior to becoming a podcast host, Toni worked as an accountant and business traveler. In 2018, she made the decision to leave her career to pursue her entrepreneurial journey, and her experience was featured on XO Nicole. Toni's mission is to inspire others to courageously make the choice to live out their most persistent desires. Hey, Toni, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Me too. I'm so excited to have you here today because I want to share with our guests a little bit more about your transition from a 9-to-5 to full-time entrepreneurship. I loved your story. I found you on Instagram, and I thought this would be a great story to share with the Purpose of Money listeners. So first thing I want to know is, for those who are not familiar with the life of an accountant, what was your life like as a 9-to-5 employee?
Yeah, so it was pretty interesting, actually. And I would say it's not the norm because I worked for this Fortune 500 company that was a multimedia company, and they owned like a ton of newspapers and a ton of broadcasting stations across the country and in the UK. And so my job was actually to travel to these different areas, different properties that they owned, and I audited them. So I did a lot of traveling. I traveled up to like 50% of the time. So it was very cool opportunity and a unique way to be an accountant.
I love that. Did you pick the job because of the travel?
I did. It was actually my first job out of college. So it was just like, boom, we do travel. This is what we do. We travel up to 50% of the time. And I just fell in love with that. So, yeah.
So if it was a great gig, what pushed you over the edge to want to leave corporate America?
So it's funny because I always knew that I was not cut out for corporate America life. I just had that gut feeling that it wasn't for me. And I stayed for 7 years at my job because of, one, the travel. And then also I stayed because I was comfortable with my lifestyle. You know, I made a certain amount of money. I was used to certain kind of things. And I just felt like I couldn't walk away at the moment. So, yeah, that's kind of why I stayed for as long as I did. And what made me leave was I realized I was entering my 30s and I was taking stock of my life and how I showed up in the world. And I realized that I wasn't happy and I wasn't doing things with purpose or with passion. I was doing things for a paycheck. So I had that realization, and I just made the decision that it was time to go.
I love that. What you said about doing stuff with passion and with purpose. We'll talk a little bit more about that because this is the Purpose of Money podcast. So purpose is behind everything I do. And I love the way you phrase that. How did you financially prepare to take the leap? Is there anything in particular you did, or did you just show up, resignation letter, and quit?
I wish it was that easy, but no. I was pretty good at saving money, and I checked my bank account, of course, and did some calculations. And I realized I had about 8 months of saving. And so with that, I decided for me, that was enough to let me leave my job and give me a cushion to kind of go forward in that way.
Very, very good. So for those out there who are thinking about taking the leap, I want you to remember that she said she had 8 months of her monthly expenses saved before she did it. And so she was a good saver. So that's a really good tip to help others. Is there any other advice or tips that you would give entrepreneurs who are considering jumping into full-time entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much I could say, but I would say one of the things is that you just really need to trust yourself. You need to trust your timing, because you can save all the money in the world, but you're going to have to take that leap eventually. And, you know, I'm not saying take the leap and don't have a plan and don't have money saved, but definitely trust yourself, trust that timing, trust that instinct that tells you it's time to go.
I love that. I think a lot of people are really torn about the security of the paycheck
Hmm.
and don't always know that it's okay if they're ready to do it. I would say one of my favorite tips is that you have proven plan of what's going to happen next, meaning you have a business idea or you've already been working your business and you know that there's a demand for what you're trying to do. That really helps you know that it's a more mode of income is going to come in because whatever you've been selling or
Yeah.
doing before you quit has made you some money. And maybe when you have more time to yourself, you're able to make more money or to scale up your business.
Yeah, exactly. And I do say, though, I always say to people, you got to check your risk tolerance. What are you willing to give up? What are you willing to sacrifice in order to go after your goals and after your dreams? So that's, another thing too, as well.
I love that. And I've never heard risk tolerance in that context. We normally talk about it in investing, right? Like if you're
Hmm.
going to invest in something, make sure your risk tolerance is aligned with that because if it's too risky, you might panic and be
Yep.
really stressed out the whole time you're invested. And you don't want to be in those types of investments. But I love the way you consider risk tolerance in the form of entrepreneurship
Hmm.
because that is important. Are you going to stress out every day as an entrepreneur because you took this leap and you weren't prepared? Or are you going to just calmly transition and build a business that's successful because you've prepared yourself mentally, which is really
Yeah.
important, and physically and financially? So I love that. Thank you for those tips. How many businesses do you run today?
Today I'm at three.
Okay,
I'm at three active businesses. I'm
tell me
sorry.
a little bit more about that. What are these businesses and how, I mean, are they all connected or are they all completely different?
They're all completely different in a sense. And they all, I would say 2/3 of them came out of a need. So I knew I wasn't going to go back to the workforce, and I knew I needed to generate money until my actual goals started to make money for me. And so I started a dog walking business, and I started a photography business. So on top of that, I do the podcast, and then I also had a travel blog before.
I love it. And I think that even though they're all different, the travel blog definitely probably takes advantage of your photography skill set. And the dog walking business helps you have that guaranteed income because you have a
Yep.
client base, I'm sure. So
Yes.
that's pretty cool. And so you've been running all of those consecutively. How do you
Yes.
manage that all? Is it a struggle to keep them all aligned or is it pretty simple?
I think I'm pretty good at setting boundaries with work and making sure I allot the right amount of time for things. So over the years, I've gotten really good at doing that. So it hasn't really been hard managing the schedule. Um, you know, whenever I feel like I'm getting overwhelmed, I just take a step back and, always try to remember what's important, what's the priority for today, what needs to get done now, and then anything else can be pushed to later. So I'm pretty good at establishing those boundaries.
I love it. Boundaries, even in your business, guys. We need
Yeah.
boundaries to
Yes.
protect our health, to protect our wealth and our sanity. But I love how you are using it to time block your businesses. That's
Yeah.
how running multiple businesses works well. And it's a really good tip for those out there who might be juggling several
Hmm.
things. Because I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm an
Hmm.
entrepreneur, I'm a podcaster as well. I sell life insurance and then I do real estate. So I have to make time for all these things as well. And I live by my schedule. Like
Yes.
if it's not on my schedule, it's not happening.
Yes.
So I really like that. And I plan for family time and I plan for me time. So that's really good. Let's talk a little bit more about your podcast, Choose Your Life. I want to know, like, who's your ideal listener? Because some of my listeners might need to start tuning in. And what are the topics that you cover? I know I said entrepreneurship and personal development, but if you
Hmm.
can expand upon that a bit, that'd be great.
Yeah. So my podcast is really about empowering new and aspiring entrepreneurs to, go into business and know that their struggles aren't isolated, that they're not alone in their struggles. And then also to help them avoid some of the pitfalls and mistakes that, I've gone through as an entrepreneur starting out. And so some of the things that I talk about is I really talk about mental health because I think that's so important in entrepreneurship, making sure that you have a stable environment, a stable mental state. And I talk about, consistency in entrepreneurship because a lot of times starting out, you have a hard time being consistent. I also talk about how much money you need to have saved before you quit your job. And I also talk about the mistakes that I've made in entrepreneurship. So yeah, that's kind of where we go with the podcast. And I really try to get open and raw and real about the things that I talk about so that others can kind of take heed to that advice.
I love it. And I think one of the other perks is your podcast episodes are short.
Yes, they're very short.
So you can literally listen to it on your way to something. And by the time you get there, it'll be done.
It'll be done, right?
I love it. You get straight to the point, get to the meat and the juicy stuff, and then you wish people well for their day. So that's really good.
Yes, wish them well.
I love it. I love it. So the name of the podcast is called The Purpose of Money. So I ask all my guests this question. What is your purpose for money?
I would say my purpose for money is the freedom to live life on my terms and the ability to help others do the same thing.
I love it. That's my favorite answer because I want to use money to create freedom, to create experiences for my family and for my friends they've never imagined. And those are all great things. And that's why it's really awesome when you apply yourself to that goal and then you accomplish it, $1 at a time. Yeah. That's what we're doing, building wealth $1 at a time. So I want my listeners to start following you. I want them to start listening to your podcast. So please let us know, where are all the social media platforms and websites that we can find you so we can connect?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at Choose Your Life Podcast. And then I'm on Twitter on the Choose Pod, POD. So that's where you can find me.
Yes. And don't worry, guys, I'll make sure to include all the ways to connect with Toni in the show notes. I hope that this episode was helpful to you. If it is, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and leave a review. We love it when you do that. Until next time, keep building generational wealth $1 at a time. Thank you for listening to the Purpose of Money podcast. For more resources and information, check out my website, thepurposeofmoney.com. And while you're there, please sign up for our newsletter so you have the latest information on new episodes and blog posts. Until next time, keep creating freedom in your life today